Okay, so hi, my name is Jesper, and I would like to tell you a story. It was back in those days, 10 years ago or so, I had a company called J, which later became famous as Rocket Internet, or something like that came out of it. And that was me, that company. Behold my great artistic skills. Now zoom to 10 times 10 meters. This will be interesting. So I was a developer, or actually lead developer. And more often than not, something bad would happen. You know, there was this wall, and over this wall, I looked up to this wall, and something came down. A Jira ticket. Something was thrown over the wall. And in this Jira ticket, it was basically a long list like this. Do this, don't think, do exactly this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 12 bullet points. The first 2 of these bullet points made sense. The third one was simply wrong. The fourth one, if we would implement the feature right there, how it was specified there, it would take us 4 weeks. With a small change, it would take 4 hours. And the list goes on and on and on. This was really like things thrown over the wall, not giving us the intention, what they wanted to do, but giving us a kind of like checklist of things to implement, shutting off all thinking. And of course, we already had a plan of things we wanted to do in that sprint, and then came this. But hey, it's no problem. It's a new feature. We put it in the sprint log, and everything's fine. And then came the voice over the wall which said, by the way, you have 2 weeks to deliver this, because we already signed the contract. This happened more than once. Do you know something similar happened to you in your development team? I see some hands raising up here. This sucks. But still, hey, that's our job. Somehow we make it work. We know that there's this wall, things got thrown over, so we deal with that. Okay. So then we found a solution. We implemented that stuff, and then we would pass it over to QA. And after this all was tested, then we would pass it over to the ops team. So the poor fellows who do on-call duty to manage that the servers don't crash down in the middle of the night. You know, this pattern and this pattern is very similar. So actually what I did there was throwing things over the wall to the next team. It's not cool. It's not good for the QA guy, it's not good for the operations guy. They felt basically the same as me. So over time, this is some time ago, 10, 12 years, we learned how to work with that. So we have things now like DevOps. So as a developer, I should build myself. We have integrated QA, either by doing unit tests, but also by automating integration tests, things like this. So it's no longer throwing things to the wall, it's a cross-functional team. And I would say this is best practice. And if you don't do that, you should. Still, the wall is still there. And what most teams did, we also do it at OUTFITTERY, is we got ourselves a product owner, built a small pedestal very high up the wall. So this guy was partly in the team, would hand us the requirements, and we could work on that. But most importantly, this guy would look over the wall to the stakeholders who come with projects and deadline, or would give us some warning time and mediate with them. And this is how we do things. This is I would say, a good cross-functional team in practice. It's really cool. It looks a bit like inside of a castle, right? So you have a castle wall, you have a lookout, and then you have people in the castle. And if the stakeholders are nice, once a week during planning time, you would open the gate and they could come in, you would closely inspect the wagon they had in front, and if they're nice, then you would be gracious to implement this. If you look at how Scrum is set up, in the core version that no one does, it says like, if there's an interruption in the sprint, you start a sprint anew. So basically erect a wall, even with a methodology, against business. Like if they learn something, if they have something else, you threaten to start the sprint anew because otherwise you can't commit. So you build this wall to protect your team. which is good for the developers because they're focused, they can work on something, they know what they will do in the future. It's not so good for business. So still, we have the setup. This works. Classic cross-functional team just works fine for the developers, that is. But with that, at OUTFITTERY, we had a few challenges, and this is what the talk is about. Challenge number 1. This is about a story about the team that was responsible for the website. So basically what OUTFITTERY does is, as a customer, we serve only men, you come to the company, go through this funnel, enter information, and in the end, we take that information, pack a box of fashion clothes for you, which you send to you, and then you can decide if you want it or not. So this funnel the customers sign on is very important for us. So it looks like this. This is the current version. So you go to the start page, then you go through a series of pages where you would elaborate, this is my fashion style, these are my sizes, whatever. Then you come to the first point where users drop off, because this is where they have to identify themselves, just classic registration. After that comes some extra questions which are more relevant for the box. We explain what this is all about, and in the end then comes the next thing. Okay, now we want to have your address, because now it gets serious. We want to ship you something. So one thing very important for us is what is the conversion rate? So what percentage of customers who come in here end up here and order something? This is one of the most important things in commerce. I don't need to tell you this. So, and this was one of the things we had to improve. We had a dedicated team for this, classic cross-functional team, had a team lead, so kind of like lead developer, 2 front-end developers, 2 back-end developers, and a test automation engineer. Very nice setup. We also had a product owner in the team. So, and the quest of this team was to increase conversion rate by 1%. It actually was a different number, but just for sake of simplicity. And this was one of the most important projects we had last year. Because last year for OUTFITTERY was to make the company profitable. We had a lot of funding, we spent a lot of money, we had fun times. Last year we got serious and made the company profitable, and we were successful in doing so. This project played a huge role in that. So this was a very important project, which meant the CEO asked me at least once a week, like, how things are going, and also the team. So, and in this team, there had been a lot of change, new members in the team. I think 4 of the 6 people have been, when I started in the company, they all have been probation because they joined with me. And the code base was pretty bad. We improved that a lot, but for these new team members, that was really a problem. So they were still fighting to try to make these things work on a technical side, but still had this quest to improve the conversion rate a lot. What we did, actually, how we succeeded is using something called hypothesis-driven development. If you want to know more about this, then you can come to me afterwards. Basically, it's say, like, I believe you can change this because of that. It's a bit like from what you also do in Lean Startup. And then you do a lot of A/B tests to test these hypotheses. So every change that we did, we measured if we were successful in moving the needle, or moving the conversion rate or not. Of course, we had to build the A/B test framework ourselves. But OK, we did that. But finally, after lots of anxiety, sometimes a lot of frustration, we finally managed to push the needle. We needed 1%, but hey, at the first success, we found the one hypothesis works, the one A/B test that works, and we increased conversion by 0.1%. This sounds tiny, but this can mean many thousands or tens or hundreds of thousands of euros. So, yes! And we went into the weekend and we're really happy and proud of ourselves. Finally, we are going in the right direction. And when we came back on Monday, the conversion rate had increased by a full %. What the? Why? We didn't. Why? How? No! So what has happened? There's another team that affected the same thing. That's the marketing team. And they work differently. So, sorry for getting a bit theoretical to explain this, but marketing is essentially going by cost per acquired user. So here you have €1 million. How many customers can you get me for that? That's all they care about. So they take in 2 KPIs, the cost per visit for the channel. How much does it cost to bring a customer to the website, so the very first start page, which depends on volume. The more customers you get from the channel, the more expensive it gets. And then they look for that channel, how good is the conversion rate? And if you multiply this, then you have CAC. Quick example, let's say one channel. You have cost per visit costs €1. All the numbers are fake, but cost per visit is €1. Let's say this is a Facebook channel. And these customers, if one of them for €1 comes here, 5% of them end up in the end. Means cost per acquired customer €20. Okay. Now let's say we have paid advertising on TV. Cost per visit is higher. It costs more to get a customer there. But once you have them here, their conversion rate is twice as good for that channel. 10%. In the end, for marketing, it doesn't matter. In both cases, to acquire a customer that buys something, you had to pay €20. So left or right, they don't care. But we only cared for the conversion rate. And the conversion rate between the 2 channels grossly is very different. So depending on if they were the directed traffic, our conversion rate jumped like this. So we were fighting to make a tiny, tiny increase, and they made it very like this all the time. Not by ill intention, it's just that drop. So yeah, we looked at them, and we saw their deadline. What we didn't understand is they had a secret lever, and if they would pull that, everything that the whole team would go up and down. It's like a massive elevator or something. So and this led to a lot of frustration. Because think about it, you work your asses off to move the needle a tiny bit and then someone else and moves the whole clock. This became serious for us from a conversion because there was an overall negative trend in conversion for us beginning of last year. It was going down over time, for week over week, month over month. You have tiny increases. And then the question is like, who is responsible for that? The CEO wanted to know, who is responsible for that? Is it the marketing mix? Maybe the web team is bad and just has lots of small bugs, or maybe it's a seasonal effect, or it's just random luck, or maybe the market changed. No one knew. But the pattern that came up in this was lots of finger pointing. Who's to blame? It's not my fault, it's them. No, we don't have bugs, it's marketing mix. Or marketing saying, no, it's all the bugs because we're doing fine. So the deeper problem here, the pattern is, these teams, the tech team and the marketing team, they didn't understand each other, they didn't trust each other. So these BIS effects were thrown over the wall. They did something that affected our lives big time, and we had no way to predict that. But to be honest, we also did the same to them. Because let's say we change the wording on a website. If they then redirect traffic not to this page, but to this page, and if you change the wording here, then that means that their marketing campaign might no longer work. And actually, I think 70% of traffic never see this page because they come directly to the second page. Or yeah, sometimes we also had small problems. We tested this, and this is a page that no one uses, so we don't need to fix it right away. And then they start a campaign directly to that page. Things like this, the usual. So this led a lot to something went wrong, and then he went over to the other team. Did you change anything? Did you change anything? There was a lot of running around and finger pointing involved. Not good. Maybe you see also a similar pattern at your company. So the challenge we had here is we really did not understand each other. And we also have to ask ourselves if we really did want to understand the other thing. Because when I listed these KPIs for marketing, I don't know who of you was really interested in this, because when you are a developer, like, who cares for that stuff? It's not really what we want to do, otherwise we would have become a marketing analyst. But it affects our lives. So it was nice to stay in our castle. It was nice to say within the boundaries of our cross-functional team. It was just easier to keep it that way. But it was causing problems. But we had 2 other challenges. Another challenge that we had in our organization as a company is that the marketing team was very clear. Yeah, they had this finger pointing, but at least they knew to which team to go to. If the marketing team wanted to do something, they went to the web team. Fine. The CRM team had a problem, though. The CRM team, that's customer relationship management. This is the team that if you bought once, they bring you back. You can say innovative product information via email, or you can say spam. That's up to you. But this is what they do. This team's job is to bring the customer back to order a second or a third time, if they don't come back from themselves. It's an important role. So, and the CM team thinks in campaigns. I want to do a campaign. I want to reach out to my customers. So they think in different channels. So there's a web channel. OK, they go to the web team. But there's also an SMS channel. Who is responsible for this? That's the sales tech team. So that does the tools for whatever reason. And email, OK. Email, that's the other team over there. So whenever they wanted to do something, they had to talk to 3 different teams. And actually, there was a 4th team, the mobile team, which was responsible for push notifications, but CRM team doesn't really care about that, and the team was always forgotten. So this is not working. If you don't know who's your partner to work with, how can you build up trust and bond over time and together learn? If you have to talk to someone else, and every of the tech teams had their own priority and said, sorry, I can't help you, maybe come back in 6 weeks. It's a very frustrating experience for the business team. So challenge number 2 was kind of we had to ask ourselves if the tech department is really set up well to support the business needs, which is how we make money and pay our salary in the end. So, and we also had to ask, did we really care? Because the setup that the sales team is responsible for SMS, that made sense some time ago. And now this team had all the knowledge about sending SMS, and if you would change it somewhere else, that's a massive effort. Maybe you even have to move people around. So it was much easier to keep it that way, but not delivering the best service for the company and the business. The third challenge is a bit more complex. So assume you all work in commerce companies. We deal with physical goods. That means we cannot just work in the day and do something. We also need to look at our cost structure, for example. We need to buy the stuff that we sell 9 months before we actually can sell it. So we need to know 9 months of how much we are going to sell things. So we need to be very precise in forecasting how the business will develop over time. So when we do a project, we always want to predict, what is the change? If we invest 2 months of work on a website, how much will this change the conversion rate, for example, things like this. So the delta in KPIs is something that we're interested in when we're delivering projects or delivering new products. And this delta in KPIs changes the world for the business teams, because they need to predict, we are going to acquire 5 million users through re-engagement campaign at months and 1,000 new customers, whatever. So the things that we do on the project side affects their life in the future. So they need to take that in. What tech does in these projects, business needs to know because it will affect their future life. And what they will predict how the business will develop affects then the business case, which essentially is the budget, which essentially pays our salary. So can we hire more people or not? Things like this. And the business case where we have the needs and where it's tight and where it's good, this affects the priority of the project. So it's a gigantic feedback loop going throughout the whole company. Very complex one. If you look at the teams that are involved there, okay, you have the business teams all around there that do some things. And somewhere in the middle, inside their castle is IT. And everyone wants something from IT, which protected themselves with this wall to minimize communication. And to make things worse, of course, they all had to also talk to each other. So this team setup and this wall that we had there lowered the collaboration of these teams, of the business teams to IT, because we needed to actually, our goal is, okay, we could do this might help you in the future to do that, and that will then help the business. No one works alone in this. So the question is still, did you really try to do that? Did we do the best job? And last year, when the company was about getting profitable, we really turned every stone over because we needed to look at everything that we do and just became better at everything that we do. So initially, it made sense to have these all of these different players and everyone is responsible for one thing, and of course, if it's software, then IT is responsible for that. Sure, that makes sense. And it was much easier to keep it that way, but it hindered us. So we wanted to change that because of these 3 challenges. What we wanted to do is really think about, okay, cross-functional teams are really nice, especially for everyone working in tech. But what about the rest of the company? What about the business? Which is why we are paid at the end of the day. So we came up with a plan. This is from the original slides I had there some time ago. So we simply thought, okay, let's rethink the company. So if the company basically does onboard new customers, sell them something, deliver them something, and then brings them back, if that is the life cycle of a customer, maybe it would make sense to use the same structure for the company as a whole as well. So this is what we're doing right now. So we have a team that is responsible for onboarding, independent if it's business or tech or product or data. This is one team responsible to do onboarding. And we have one team, or we're working towards having one team for sales and ops that do the same, and we have one team that works towards this in re-engagement. So we give a bunch of people a shared purpose. We say, you over there, you are responsible for onboarding, and you over there, you are responsible for re-engagement. Figure it out between the 2 of you. You have all things. So it's kind of like a cross-functional team, including business. How do we do that? For that, I need to widen the scope a bit and go to digital means. So we wanted to set up one team that is responsible for everything regarding onboarding, so everything that is necessary to get a customer to sign up with us for the first time. So we would have business people in there. We would have IT and product in there. And we would do the same for the other 4 areas. In order to, how does this work? So we didn't put everyone in the same room and said, like, you are one team now. We aligned them on the purpose and the roadmap. Come to data in a minute. So let's go into one team. So we have one team that is responsible for business, let's say the marketing team. And you have one team that is responsible for developing the products for that. For web and marketing, there was already structure in place, which you called the triangle. So basically, out of a function, there would be one person sitting together. So someone representing business, the business owner, someone representing product, someone representing tech, so the software that is built and the architecture requirements. And these 3 would agree on the roadmap of that team. This is something we have been doing for 2 years or so. So from the business side, it comes more like, okay, this is what we need for the business products, and develops a kind of like a vision how to develop the product. And from the IT team comes mostly, yeah, sure, but we also need to fix our bugs, and maybe our architecture should be involved. I need at least 1/3 of our capacity of the team to do that. So these 3 would agree on the structure. And this is this building block, the triangles, is not what we use to make these end-to-end teams work. We also wanted to put data in the mix. Before, data and data science was a separate business unit. And due to number constraints and due to the nature of the work, which is research, basically, we simply do not have enough data scientists to put 3, 4 data scientists in each of the team. So it is still a separate unit. But what we had is one person who's part, the data team is down here, who's part of the data team, but is also part of that team. So this guy actually has 2 seats, 2 desks, and for 2 days he sits with one team, and 3 days he sits with the other team, thereby making communication and bridging the world, which works for us pretty well. And also this person we put into this triangle, making it a diamond. So that means from these, for everything that we do in our product development, these 4 dimensions are important for us. Business, product, tech, and data, as equal partners defining the delivery of the teams and what the team is actually working on. So these 4 agree on the roadmap of the team. So putting it back in scope, this is how we got data in there. This is the basic setup that we have now. There are a few teams that we couldn't fit in this. we simply didn't have enough designers to put 1 or 2 designers in every team. So in these cases, like for example, for the design team, it's a separate team, which I think right now has 3 designers or something. So this is a separate team. It's a separate service team that serves all the other service team, and it also has a service mentality to do that. There are other teams that doesn't make sense to distribute them because they're highly specialized. So we have a team of 2, soon 3 DevOps engineers who basically provide the tooling for a Kubernetes-based cluster. So it doesn't make sense to distribute them over a team. It makes sense because it's so specialized work to provide the basic tooling in one team. So this is a separate team. And you have a few functions like HR, PR, and so on, which doesn't make sense to put them in the structure anyway. So these service teams are set on the side. This is the rough outline of things that we have. It's a bit inspired, of course, like probably everyone else in the work by Spotify and their tribes model. So you can say, like, these are our tribes. We also have something like guilds, it would be, or chapters in the Spotify terms. So for example, all product managers, they meet regularly and talk about product, and this is also a very strong sense of collaboration, and we have the same for engineers, for analysts, and so on. So back to my original slides, my drawing skills back were even longer. This was how we explained it to the team. So we had these 3 tech teams. We had these 3 these 3 business departments where we had really this close one-on-one relation because between them already exists this triangle. But we also had some other business teams like CM, which I talked about, and other teams like customer support, finance, buying, which were kind of like somewhere, and no tech team was really responsible for them. And we had the mobile team, which always was forgotten because we don't do so much mobile. So what we basically did is we grew the web team. We hired more people in the web team until it became big enough to be split, and said, you half of the web team, you're responsible for marketing, you become the onboarding team. And you half of the web team, you become the re-engagement team, and are responsible for CM now. And mobile, we would put in the CM team, because for us, it's more about retention and not acquiring new customers. And this is the state that we have now. We started with these 2 teams as an experiment to see how this is going, because it has massive effects throughout the company. And once we've seen how this works, we decide if we want to do it here as well. Right now, it looks like we are strongly heading in this direction because it works well, as I will tell you in a minute. So this was the plan. How did it go? So in our move towards end-to-end, I always need to caution, this is an experiment. So we experiment with the basic organizational structure of the company, and this might fail. Right now, it looks like it's a payoff. It looks very well. But still, it's an experiment, so we do not have all the answers yet. What we started to do is sharing with the roadmap planning and goals. So we said, like, you're responsible for onboarding. So you together, you business and you product and you tech people and you data people, you please come together, like, what should be the roadmap in that value stream? So instead of doing a roadmap planning for a team, we did a roadmap planning for a value stream, which is defined by the customer lifecycle, independent of the function and your qualification, independent if you're a marketing analyst or a developer. And of course, that means also using OKRs, shared OKRs for the structure. The daily life still is separated. It doesn't make sense. So on the business side, it makes more, it's more day-to-day operation, more Kanban-style thing, whereas in development, we use a sprint cycle. And it's looking 2 weeks ahead, coming out with a plan that, for us, doesn't make so much sense for our business departments. So these are still 2 teams which are co-located, which have a shared planning. So they act as one team to the outside. Internally, they're still a separate team, even though they sit side by side, which is important. We started with a limited scope, so only 2 of the 4 teams we started with. 1 the onboarding team, like I said, and 1 the re-engagement team. Still, even though it was limited scope, even if we talked months before we doing it, there was a lot of anxiety. We got so many questions, we got so many concerns. Some people, mostly on the business side, I mean, we kind of like dissolving the IT department and putting IT in the business teams. Essentially, this is what we are doing. But the people on the business side were much more afraid of this change. So we had questions like, who will take what role? What will I do in the future? How much will my role change? What will change? Anything? Everything? What will be the outcome? What if it fails? Oh my God, if it fails, what will happen? Will we all lose our jobs? Or there was so much panic. Where will people sit? Did you ever organize a team in the company? Oh my God. And we are not 1,500 people who were reorganized. We are talking about, all in all, maybe 50 out of 250 people in the company who were affected by this. So we had to move a lot around. We had to move stylist teams around, so the free up room where the new development team could sit, and the design team should also switch for. Before, all the IT people were on the 5th floor. It was really nice. People could visit our cool coffee machine at our ping pong table. And in the parties, then we would play beer pong. But it was also like this castle mentality. All of IT and all of data on the 5th floor and everyone else below us. It was a physical manifestation of the castle model that we had. So, but here then the question is where we sit. The marketing CN team, they were sitting in an open office. And in our hiring, we said, we don't have open office for developers. And now, how do we do this? So this is why we had to relocate half of our stylists somewhere else so that the developers didn't need to sit in an open office, but in a small room. Will we have enough space? Actually, to make this work, we had to increase our total office space a bit. I mean, we are also hiring like crazy right now, so let's see when we run out of space, but actually, that was a valid concern. Will it be too loud? I think for one developer, I gave him 50% of his noise cancellation headphones I paid myself just to make this work. And we had a lot of questions there, a lot of panic there, because in the end, when you do a change like this, it's about people. It's about individuals. They all have their own motivation. They all have their own career plan. They want to know, like, when they come back next to office, like, where will they sit? What will they do? So this is normal. If you ever do a change like this, be prepared for this. I knew this was coming, but I still was surprised by the level of anxiety we had. You need a mentality of, hey, it's an experiment. It might fail. If it fails, we go back to normal. So there's no risk for you. Let's give it a try. Trust me, let's give it a try, right? This is essentially how we did it. So this also took some time. So the first idea to do this, that was in summer, last year summer, sometime in July, August. The final decision that we wanted to do this, we did in October. The actual move then was in December, so that we could start working that way beginning of January, because of all the discussion that dragged it out. But the actual split of the web teams, we are not just doing this month. Why? Because it took longer to hire enough people, so the team is big enough that it actually can be split in 2 cents and make sense. So it's just we hired the second test automation engineer just 1st of April. So now we can split the team. So everything took a bit longer. But this roadmap planning, this virtual triangle or then the diamond, this is something we do since October. And the shared OKRs for the whole team. So this is your shared goal that you have to reach together. Please find out like how you do that. This is something that we are doing since January. So the situation right now is that the teams are co-located. So the developers moved from, in our case, from the 5th to the 3rd floor. We are already relocating the developers for the other parts of the business to be prepared for that migration there as well. Actually, in the setup right now, the product owners no longer sit with the tech team, which they are in a daily collaboration with, because it's so close, it's not necessary. But it made a lot of sense to replace the product managers with the business people, with the marketing team, with the CM team, because they're kind of like the new bonding needed to grow most. And this for us was a very good thing to do. And as I said, we're using now this one value stream, onboarding, re-engagement, instead of marketing, CM for planning. We now hired enough people to do the split. I mean, if you ramp up hiring, this always takes a while. So we had a kind of like 2-3 months delay in this, but now hiring actually works. If someone wants a job, come to me later. And we introduced a few practices to help, which I want to tell you. It's kind of like the lessons learned we did in this. So let's have a look like the good, the bad, and the things we learned from this. So the good. There was this massive amount of anxiety. Everyone was afraid, and I think it was something, I don't know, 15th or 16th of December. Everyone packed their stuff and moved down there, and it was chaos half of the day. And then people were just happy. It was kind of like, finally we agreed to do this, finally now it's going. There was a lot of energy in this room, and I think like in the next week, kind of like half of the product initiatives that we're now doing were kind of like envisioned in the first place. So this freed up a lot of energy because the new structure just feels right of working together, both for the tech side as for the business side, which for me came really surprising because of all this panic we had before in the air. Once we actually did it, things went well immediately. People were relieved. It was a lot of fun. A lot of beer drinking end of the day after the move. You did something together, you celebrated together, and next day you would work together. One noticeable thing that changed also very quickly is we were not talking about them. Those guys in marketing, you were talking with them. Hey, what did you change? What is your plan for the future? It was a near instant change in mindset of not talking about them, but talking with them. And of course, then it also helps, like if you go with lunch with the people on the other side of the wall because the wall is taken down because they are now sitting next to them. Then I have to speed up. So basically, we have this feeling now of we end this together, which really helps us, which results in a strongly increased communication. This is the biggest benefit we have from this, which increased in a strongly increased collaboration. Oh, you have a problem there. Oh, now I know what problem you have. Maybe I can help you. Landing page problem by tech. Okay, we can solve this easily. This really is a massive improvement that we have. And also for the larger project that we have a much better alignment, we have less surprises and much more transparency. This is what made the change worth it. Also pretty much what we expected, I would say. There's also some bad things. So we also hope that for the project that would still cross multiple domains, let's say, I don't know. Okay, so the main project that I didn't want to talk about today is GDPR. That affects everyone. So collaboration for a project like this, no effect. The end-to-end teams didn't make it worse. They didn't make it better. We had hoped it would make things better. No effect whatsoever. Okay, it's not so serious. We had a slight negative impact on IT bonding. Since now half the IT teams no longer sit, they now sit on 2 separate floors. That means there's less communication between the IT teams. We have things like scrums that we can still get away with it to compensate for this, and for us it works. It's not a big problem, but it's something that we watch out for in the future. The really interesting thing is that this idea of you have a shared purpose, now you all have a feeling of shared responsibility. This didn't come, which for me was a surprise. It kind of like makes sense. Maybe, so we think it just seems on time. So by just giving a team kind of like you're responsible for this together, it doesn't mean that you have the skill and you're interested to also understand the other person in the team. You know better what they're doing. You will try to help them more. But it doesn't mean that the business manager now thinks about tech debt. So this holistic view for the end-to-end team that we hoped for, that is something that we haven't seen materialize yet. And there's a drawback to this, which is bigger than we had thought. Because our business domain is really complex, the mental overhead, if you now are responsible for the whole thing, because this is shared OKRs and this is shared roadmap planning, you have more things to understand. And I see, for example, that the product managers really struggle with the concept of forecasting retention numbers. The business people are used to that. That's their bread and butter business that they have been done for the last 2 years. But if you're a product manager and you think about the customer experience and how things go and how's it good, and then someone asks you, can you please help me to predict like how many re-engagement customers we will have in 3 months now in this segment? It's a new terrain. You have to put more on your head. And We are now adjusting our forecast process and our planning process to reduce the mental overhead, especially for the product managers, who now need to understand business in detail as well. This, for me, is the main negative outcome of this. This is the one thing that we're addressing right now, by simplifying processes, for example, the planning and forecast process. But we also had some really nice best practices. I mean, some are, okay, yeah, Slack. Something like a chat tool, just the sense of ad hoc communication. If you want to discuss something, create a channel for that, do that, helps across Steam. This was something that helped us also in the transition phase, and it's still helping us now. So we have, I don't know, these end-to-end teams have a shared Slack channel, which is about trading cat videos. That helps us bonding. So Slack is good, something like that. If you use HipChat or whatever, it doesn't matter. The effect that we have that IT drifts a bit apart, we didn't see at all for the product managers. Why? Because they will have a good practice of using a kind of like product guild. The most effective means is so simple. Actually, every Monday for 2 hours, they sit together somewhere in a corner, which has a nice place. It's an open office, it's not secret, and they just sit there and work together. So it's not just a specific agenda, they just do their stuff, but they sit by each other, and if someone has a question, they can ask. And this leads to bonding of the group. And once they introduce this product quality time, just the sitting together 2 hours a week, which we can do because we are still at this size, this missing dependencies, or I block you, and we didn't talk about this nearly vanished. It's a small thing, but helped us a lot. And this also helped us to not have any negative effects on product. And extending this to business also helped them as a good practice to bridge the gap to business, which we are doing now. Another thing that some product manager came today, let's do a sprint demo for the end-to-end team. It's such a small thing, and for tech teams, this is, maybe not all do that, but it's a really nice thing. But in this setup, you suddenly have had a developer up there showing, this is a page that we will bring back in 2 weeks. These are our problems. This is what we did. And this was really interesting for the business people, because this was the first time to understand like what is happening, what are the problems, how this is working. And this extended over time, because then next time, oh yeah, let me explain you, this is a CRM campaign that we're doing, and this is why we did this way and not the other way, which then led for developers to understand this. And this is just like every 2 weeks, half an hour. It's for the whole team. We do this in this open office space, so we have maybe 30 people there attending to it. But it really helps in this common understanding. So these shared sprint demos is something, especially for if you have these two teams that don't know each other so well, it's a very powerful thing for us. It's a very good spirit in the room, and it really leads to this follow-on question that really then help to improve things. A similar thing is something that we introduced is the 8 minutes of fame. So this is a lightning talk round. So once a month for a specific area, we have 4 lightning talks. And the only rule is after 8 minutes, you need to stop talking. And then there's a bit Q&A, which leads up to that Q&A, setting up the machine, have a short lightning talk. It's just 50 minutes, so you can do 4 of these talks in an hour. And we started doing this with the engineers. Talk about technical things. This is a new framework. This is how I do my tests, things like this. It's a very nice format. It's more like a campfire mentality. It's very low barrier, so everyone can participate in that. The interesting thing is that they applied this immediately in the context of the end-to-end team. So now there's an 8 minutes of fame between product, marketing, and CRM, which again helped bridging the gaps, making you known, because someone who has a talk there, you know his or her name. And you also know, this person talked about that topic, I can come to them later on. It's a very simple thing that is extremely efficient in making a group bond together and work together. Another thing that worked very well for us is seat rotation. So remember this concept of this data scientist who for 2 days sits here and for 3 days sits there? I was a bit concerned that this would really be disruptive for his work. Actually, this now works so well that our controllers and analysts do the same pattern again. It helps really you do not need to be full-time with a team to understand how they work and to build up the network that gives you then, if you need an answer, that you know the person that you can ask to and go quickly to it. So since we are all in one building, even though we're on many flaws, for us, this is a pattern that really works and fosters communication, which in the end is the foundation for innovation. Another thing that we do is a bit like from product quality time. We do shared midterm planning, which is just like everyone comes together looking for the next 3 weeks, every week, outlook for the next 3 weeks, dependency in between. It's kind of like a shared board, shared roadmap setting. Works very well for us, detecting the problems in between the teams. And also from the start on, we gave the teams enough time to do retrospectives, to reflect over this. And the interesting thing is when you do this massive organization change that we are doing, it forces people to think about how they have been doing things in the past. So there are some nice effects like change in the way how, let's say, the business teams work. First of all, there's a data scientist sitting now nearby, which is no longer somewhere hidden in the castle on the 5th floor, and you don't really know where he sits. You can ask them over lunch, and then he can help you with your Excel, which is trivial for this guy. But it helps then the marketing intern, things like this. So to sum this up, for me, it's 3 things. In order to make this work, it's a fundamental shift in leadership style that we see in the company. Before it was, okay, here you had a marketing team, here you had a tech team. So from above, from management, you needed to tell both, do this project together. Since they are now doing together, then it's more like, we as management, we want to go there, please figure out a solution. And you tell us your proposal, how you want to do that. So by doing this change and by giving a clear purpose, so not throwing things over the wall from management to the team, but from the team coming up with a solution to known problems, we shifted from a top-down to a bottom-up mentality. And that was my hope. But right now, it's really transforming the company, making this whole company a bit more agile, as I would call it. It's really a profound change coming from the back door, but you see it over and over, and you see it also in the level of innovation that we get from people. Because it ties into that their work is better. So these teams now have a clear purpose and a clear autonomy. And if you think about intrinsic motivation, like why do you want to work, then you quickly come to what guys like Dan Pink say, it's kind of like autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So if you have these, basically the theory is, if you have these 3 things, then you're more committed to your work, you're more happy. And the parts, purpose and autonomy, this really comes from leadership and from the team setup. And by giving this purpose and autonomy to the team, it automatically triggers down to the individuals in the team to have more purpose and autonomy, because it's clear who they need to ask in order to do that. It's someone inside their team where they know them. It's not some manager somewhere else. So mastery is still something which goes in a direction like growth and accountability, but this helps. The other thing is, if you give a group of people a clear purpose and autonomy to find solution for that, they start to realign themselves. And this is a very powerful thing. You don't need to think about, from a manager, the whole thing. They align themselves. Still, the one thing that we really wanted to have from a company organization point is to have this one set of shared responsibility. You do it together, so you think, you marketing guy, you think on tech, and you tech guy, you think on marketing. That didn't materialize itself. Maybe the hopes are too high. We are seeing us moving in the direction, but we are not there yet. Still, we got a massively improved collaboration. So the spirit of the team is better, and the throughput is much better. And it's not so much about efficiency, it's more about the effectivity. And this is where we see the big gains. And this is why we are very helpful, very thankful for this experiment, and really want to continue with that, and very positive about the outcome. But still, it's an experiment, and the experiment will continue. And maybe I can come back next year to tell you about the final outcome. Thank you. Do we have time for questions, or maybe one? Are there any questions? I can't see you anyway. We didn't slow down. No, not at all. So the thing is that this is when people were actually moving, then that caused an interruption, but we started planning in the new way already before. So we had kind of like this virtual setup of working together, business and tech together, and aligning them, we already had done before because we switched these planning triangles first. So for example, when we calculated the business case for this year, it's kind of like the planning for the whole year ahead, roughly what we could do, we already worked in the new mode, even though the team was operating in the old. And this transition made it very smooth. So in this regard, we have lots of problems, but this was not a problem for us.
Did you let people decide which team to be in? The self-selection process, or did you simply move them?
So the question is, so the first question was like if it was interruptive to the delivery, and it was not. The second question is if we would let people choose how to do this. No, we didn't do that. We basically did the reassignment on the team level and said, like, you as a team, we clarified your purpose, you as a team are responsible for this, and this is why you align with the other team. What we do is we have the possibility to shift in between teams for developers, which doesn't happen so often, but for example, is one case we will do it in 2 or 3 weeks, someone will shift to another team, partly because of that. I think if there are any other questions, please come to me, I will stay around. But I think before someone throws things at me, I leave the stage to the next speaker. Thank you very much.